Good morning. Welcome back. This morning we are out country road, out here in northern Kentucky, waiting for the sun to come up. I'm going to try to capture an image of an old barn. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's back over here over my shoulder. All right, as the sun comes up, sun's up over here, so we should, whenever as the sun comes up, it'll be off to my left here. All right, as it comes up, we'll be able, hopefully, to capture the light on the barn and the pasture, which a second ago looked like I had a cow in it. Of course, we got this little pond here in front of us as well. So we're going to do that. At the same time, we're going to talk about, what I am shooting with. All right, let's talk a little bit more about this. All right, that is my OM1 Mark II. All right, as I said in my last video, I liked it so much I thought I was going to get one, so I did. I ordered one. All right, and I've got it. Picked up a couple lenses. All right, we're going to talk about it and try to capture an image here this morning as the sun comes up. So, I'm going to capture some images, get things set up the way I like it, and then we'll talk. So, stay tuned. Alright, so shooting with this camera really isn't any different than shooting with any other. At least that's what I'm finding. Alright, this morning I'm out here shooting exactly like I always would. Instead of shooting at f11 though, I'm sitting at f8. Adjustments are basically the same. It doesn't really matter what I do with it, as long as I, watch the light meter, and as long as I look at how everything's being distributed. Pretty easy. Just adjust shutter speed, again set with a 2-second delay. We're shooting at ISO 80, alright, because that's the lowest setting that this particular camera has, so that's what I'm trying to use. Again, we're still waiting for the sun to come up high enough to be putting light down here onto the farm field and to the barn. Now what I've done this morning, a little different than I've done in others. You saw early on I was shooting with one lens. I've now switched to a different lens, so I think right now you can notice that. Alright. What I'm doing here is I'm zooming in a little bit more. There's just not a lot of elements. Got a little bit here with this pond in front of me, but nothing mind-blowing, especially this time of year. There's just really nothing. No leaves on the trees, there's nothing at all, and there's nothing in the sky. So what am I doing is I'm just zooming in a little bit more on this old barn that's over here and trying to capture that. A little different, trying to minimize things out a little bit, and I'll still get a little bit of the water, here in the scene, but nothing, really too dramatic. But again, the camera itself functions pretty much like, my Canon R5 or like any other camera I've shot. Even the OM5, which is what we're using here. So again, as the light comes up, we capture an image. All right, see what it looks like, and if anything that I'm taking here turns out, I'll put it in here for everyone to see. Alright, so I'm sure you're wondering, why would you want to, go and use this as opposed to a Canon R5 or, a Nikon Z8. What's the fascination? Because, there's a lot of people, that talk pretty negatively about Micro Four Thirds, and I know from my own channel, a lot of people question why I would use, an OMD or an OM5, and an Olympus 100 to 400 as opposed to getting the 200 to 800, Canon. All right, so we'll start with that. The Canon lens itself, I did try it. It did exactly what I expected. It, f9 on the long end. I struggled to get anything, without high ISO, which meant I was going to have to do a lot of post-processing. Now, it's not that it can't be done, it's just something I didn't want to do. You know, on top of that, it weighed 4.5 pounds and it didn't fit in my camera bag. That was another problem. You know, so I'm going to have to get another camera bag. I really didn't like the thought of that because I love my Shimoda, you know, and I really didn't want to have to get something bigger. You know, if anything, I wanted to try to find something smaller. And as I know from the analytics for my page, all right, or my channel, all right, most of my viewers are, you know, 55 to 65 and beyond. All right, you know, basically, you know, folks are almost all male, and everybody basically around my age. All right, so yeah, I'm not really hung up on full frame versus, you know, medium format versus, you know, micro four thirds or APS-C. I mean, I'm not really a big fan of APS-C, and the only reason for that is, I mean, you end up with a little, basically the same camera, smaller sensor, and the same lenses. You know, that's just me. All right. So why this? All right, because it's tiny. I mean, all right. So literally, what I'm holding here in my hand right now. All right. This is a 40 to 150 f4, the equivalent of 80 to 300. All right. I mean, if you saw my 70 to 200 2.8, and you've seen the 70 to 200 f4. All right, I mean, they're much bigger and heavier than this. The camera itself is a little bit smaller than the R5, but it is smaller and it is a little bit lighter. All right. From my standpoint, as I get older, you know, it's harder, you know, to lug around those heavier weights. You know, it's harder to, you know, to hold the camera all day. I get, you know, I find over time, you know, my hands get shaky, just like this morning. Even with this, I struggle because it's cold out. Wearing my gloves, but my fingers still get cold. You know, it's just it's a cold day. All right, and it just gets harder. With age, it gets more difficult. So I wanted to try. I like to have something I can work with. All right, that I feel comfortable with. All right, and so all right. So I've given up some megapixels. I've given up the sensor size. Yes, yeah, potentially I have more noise. Yes, I can't maybe do as well as I want. You know, higher ISO. Some of those things may be true. Yes, the depth of field, f4 really is f8. Okay, so what? All right, I don't shoot a ton of portraits, so it's not really a big deal to me. What is a big deal to me is enjoying what I'm doing when I'm outside. And I would hope, you know, that everybody watching this would say the same thing. You know, the most important thing is just be able to get out and enjoy what you're doing. You know, this is, it's a hobby. It's not like I, you know, make any money from this. I do this because it gives me something to do when I've got a few spare minutes. It's something I enjoy, and hopefully as I get a little bit older and don't have to work so much, I'll be able to do more of it. I mean, that's really the plan, because I really like getting out, taking images, you know, enjoying the outdoors, even on a brisk, cold morning, you know, and I like, you know, just trying to capture an image. I mean, it's something I enjoy. It lets the world kind of disappear, and I hope from your perspective you have the same, you know, the same thing. I mean, you know, for me it allows me to clear my head and just kind of, you know, get away from some of the stress of the things that I do every single day. All right, you know, it's kind of nice. But you know, it's a light system. It's a good system. It's a good camera with a lot of features that even, you know, Canon and Nikon don't have. Now, you know, as you see here, I showed, as I said, this is a 40 to 150 f4. All right, that's a small lens. Now I picked up a couple others. I had this on earlier. This is a Lumix. I think it's Lumix. Actually, it's a Leica. Excuse me, take that back. This is a Leica Vario Elmerit 8 to 18, 2.8 to f4. This is a really good lens. This is actually, you know, micro four thirds as well. Mounts right on this and works with it. And of course, I had this lens, all right, with my OM5, which is the, you know, the 12 to 45 f4, which you can see how tiny that is. And this is the equivalent basically of the, you know, 24 to 105, you know, Canon L lens, and you can see the size is really tiny. It just makes it a little bit easier to work with on a daily basis. Now, if you're wondering, okay, if you show me those lenses, you know, which I did, I picked these up all used, all right, so I didn't spend a fortune on any of them. We'll talk about that here in a second. But what am I videoing with? Well, I'm videoing with the OM5, all right, and I've got an Olympus 12 millimeter f2 on there. It's a fixed prime lens. And the reason for that is, I got my upcoming trip to Belgium and the Netherlands, and I decided for this trip think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to use the OM5, and I'm going to use it kind of like, you got the new Fuji X100 6 that's out, all right, that's just been announced. People are all gaga over. All right, it's got a fixed lens in it, and then of course you got the Leica Q2 and Q3 that are out there, fixed lens cameras. So you know what? Can I use the OM5, with an with a 12mm f2, and just see what I can do? One lens, nothing fancy, real tiny, easy to carry around. What could I do with it? So when I go to Belgium or the Netherlands here in a couple weeks, I'll be taking that with me, and we'll take some images. I'll try to take some video and stuff, and we'll hopefully put it together for a video for everybody to see. So what's it like to use, one lens, fixed lens at that, on a tiny camera, on a travel day, just see what it looks like. So we'll be doing that. All right, so now I bought these lenses all off of MPB, all right, including the one that I'm videoing with. That one cost me, I think, $239. All right, this one I had, it came with the camera. This one, the 8 to 18, I think it was about $600, $625, something like that for that, and about the same for this. And that's another reason why you want to use a system like this, because the camera body was $2,399. It's not cheap. Okay, let's not kid anybody, that's not cheap. But the lenses are small and fairly inexpensive, and this is a pro level lens. I mean, this is fully weather sealed. I mean, this is as good as anything that Nikon or Sony or Canon put out. I mean, this is a good lens. Same with this. I mean, this is the Leica lens, right? And if you look around, you know what Leica lenses cost. This is made by Leica. All right, this is not a cheap lens, and it does a great job. And of course, this is a pro level lens as well. All right, and I think if you're buying this used, which again, it came from my own 5, but I think if you're buying this used, it's, Jesus, it's $500, $600. Again, if you look at the 24 to 105, the equivalent to this, it's what, $1,200? So I mean, yeah, you give up a little bit in sensor. All right, yeah, you give that up. You give up a little bit in megapixels, but you gain smaller lenses, a little bit more portability. All right, and the cost of those lenses is considerably less. I mean, the most expensive lens, in this system is the Olympus 150 to 400 f4.5. It is a pro level lens. It's white. It's about this big, roughly. It's fairly large. All right, and it's $7,500. All right, so yeah, it's expensive. All right, it's got a built-in teleconverter as well. All right. The equivalent to that on the Canon side, I mean, there is an equivalent to it. All right, but if they did have something like that, again, you're looking at $10,000 to $15,000. So it would be considerably more, all right, and heavier and bigger and all the other things that go with it. There is a version of lens that comes from this because of the system. It's an Olympus 300 f4, all right, Pro Series lens, which I am going to get. All right, that lens, brand new, is about $3,000. You can buy it used for, let's call it $2,000. All right, so I'm gonna work on getting a used version of it. That's the equivalent of a 600 to f4, 600 f4. All right, which again, in the Canon system, that's $13,000, $14,000. All right, so for $2,000, I can have a lens that's smaller and more portable, but covers the exact same range. And that's kind of how I view it. All right, so it's something you got to look at and think about yourself. For my viewers that are concerned about weight and size, you might want to look at Micro Four Thirds. All right, I mean, it really does give you more portability, gives you more reach in a much smaller package, and to be perfectly honest, you got better in-body stabilization, and you got better weather sealing, and you got some features, like the built-in ND filters, and the fact that it'll do focus stacking in camera, and a few other things that you don't get with other products. So give it some thought. All right, I want to continue to use this stuff, for now, and see how it works, and try to have a little bit of fun. So thanks for coming along. All right, thanks for subscribing and everything that you do. Make sure you leave me some comments, thumbs up if you like the video itself. Appreciate every one of you. Until we see you again, stay safe.